Hello, I'm Dr. Pierre Simon, and it's wonderful being back with you. I say that all the time. I always think I need to say something else in the beginning, and then I always forget. Well, I'm getting older. It's okay that I forget once in a while, but forgetting all the time like that, it kind of annoys me. I think I stay up at night thinking, well, I have to remember to say something different. I hope you're enjoying all these series that we're doing. Parenting with Purpose is where we're at right now, navigating the journey with confidence. And it's kind of like getting up every day with confidence, believing that I can do it, I can get through this day. Today we're talking about achieving consistency in parenting. Last time we spoke about achieving empathy in parenting, and when I say that, I'm talking about what does a parent need to have? What do they need to build up in their character to be a good parent? Now, none of us are perfect, so none of us are going to have all this. But hopefully we're married to someone who does have what we don't have, and so their strengths offset our weaknesses and vice versa. But we have to have some character in us to be able to pass along those good traits to our children. And that's what we're talking about in this portion of this series of the essential qualities of effective parents. So next time we'll get into another area, but consistency in parenting, I don't know. That's a tough one because achieving consistency, it's not like being a scarecrow. You think about scarecrows, and because they're so good at being consistent, that's who they are, right? Same thing every day. No changes there. They're consistent in the field. We don't want to be like scarecrows, but there is a principle there that a scarecrow kind of stands there, doesn't do anything, and you look at it, and if you look at it long enough, you might scare you a little bit. Clowns scare me also, but you kind of look at it and it's not doing anything, but it's keeping the birds away, it's scaring the birds, and okay, and it doesn't have to do anything, but sometimes you have parents like that. They think all they have to do is just scare their kids and do the same every day and just be mean and scary, and everything's going to be okay. That doesn't work either, but there is some similarity in that. Being consistent means, okay, got to do similar things each day. Consistency refers to being coherent, being reliable. If I'm reliable every day, then I'm going to gain trust in those people that I'm interacting with. Consistency implies regularity and predictability in actions. So sort of like the scarecrow, it's regular and it's predictable. Decisions or processes that are made are consistent, and that ensures outcomes that remain stable under similar conditions. Because you can't stay perfectly rigid or legalistic. We don't want to be legalistic. We don't want to be rigid. We want to be able to be flexible at times when needed. But we want to stay similar. When similar conditions are occurring, what's our reaction going to be? How are we going to handle that? That's consistency. And when you're with someone that you know is consistent, you have confidence in being with them, that whatever's going on, they're going to be reliable in how they handle it. Well, we have to convey that to our kids. There's a sense within them that they look to the parent, don't they, when something's going on. They look and see, what are you going to do? Or how are you going to handle this? They're looking to you for that consistency of resolving whatever it is. They're trusting in you. They're confident in you that it's going to be okay. But if you're inconsistent, where's the confidence? Where's the trust? Uh-oh, I can't rely on dad or mom. I got to rely on myself. And we're going to talk about that in a moment. When parents apply consistent boundaries and loving discipline, I always have to say that because whenever we use the word discipline, you always have some people who point the finger and maybe they spank with the paddle or whatever, and we shouldn't be doing that, but they're being disciplined. They're rigid, legalistic. You got some pastors that are that way, some church leaders that are that way, aren't they? Well, they might have followers who are used to that. They grew up in that type of environment. But you know what? You walk into their churches and you got all you got is frowns on their faces. Yeah, well, you can sense it right when you walk in. Whoa, this doesn't feel comfortable here. They pass it along to their church members. Parents pass it along to their children. Discipline is in love. So whenever I use the word discipline, if I forget to say that word love, remember that word, it's attached to the word discipline. So loving disciplinary approaches, they aid a child's cognitive and emotional development. So research is showing that loving discipline increases, benefits the intelligence and the emotions and the character of the child. They thrive as a result of it. By doing that, you're establishing expectations and reliable outcomes. My expectation of my parent is that this is going to turn out okay, even if I made a mistake or I did something wrong or I've been bad or whatever. My parent loves me. I might not like the discipline, but I'll accept it. If that doesn't happen and they don't trust the parent, something else occurs and they don't learn self-discipline. They might learn something more like confusion or rebellion. So consistency is often associated with forming and reinforcing cognitive processes. Now remember, we've spoken of, and I keep reminding you, upper room, basement of the brain, top, bottom. Upper room is where all the good thinking is located. So your right thinking, good thinking is up here. Your emotion is driven down here, where the fight or flight center is located in the basement of the brain, where fear and apprehension is located. Well, if there's consistency, we tend to drive the person up the steps into the upper room, and it forms a reinforcing environment of whatever's going on. Good thinking occurs. And remember, we've said, when you're thinking good thoughts, an enzyme is produced in the brain that produces white cells. The white cells are what make new brain cells, what allow brain cells to grow and thrive, what allow neural pathways to extend. All that's good. And it's getting produced when you're in the upper part of the brain. And when we are reinforcing good things, truths, and all that with our children in love, we're keeping them up here in the upper room. They naturally want to go down there because they haven't grown yet. Their brain isn't fully formed until they're around 16 years old. The last pound of their brain is formed around 16 years old. And then between 16 and 25, what is put into that brain, all the rest of that stuff, their character and their perceptions of things become more solidified by the time they're around 25 years old. So we're still reinforcing all of that all through that period of time. Individuals strive for internal consistency in their beliefs, their attitudes, and their behaviors. And that means that parents need to have a consistency of beliefs, a consistency of attitudes, and we're going to be speaking about attitudes later on in this part of the series. and consistency in behaviors. So if you find yourself inconsistent in those ways before parenting, there's going to be trouble in parenting. The kids are going to have difficulty developing properly. There's going to be a whole lot more stress in the parenting, and the teenage years are going to be very difficult. It doesn't have to be that way, though. If we begin the work on being consistent on our beliefs as a parent. So if you think about that, well, what are my beliefs? Well, okay, I believe in this, this, and that, but I'm not sure about these other things and all that. Well, start being sure. Start reading, start gathering information to solidify your beliefs in important areas. You know, there's certain beliefs that none of us may have that are strong or solid, but most beliefs we want those things that are easy to see, that have boundaries to them, and we know this is good, and we're able to stand by it. Well, that's a belief, and if we have that belief, we pass that on to our children. Now, I might not agree with your belief, but that's your belief, and if you're going to pass that on, okay. But if you don't have beliefs, if your beliefs are like the wind, they just come and go, how are you going to instill that on the kids? What's going to happen? Their beliefs are going to be coming and going as well, and there's going to be greater difficulty when you have parents dealing with children who are having troubles with truths. What are truths? So attitudes and behaviors. So we need that as parents, as our building that character within us, and it can be done, but we need to make the effort to do it. So if you don't have that when you have your first child, you can still be working on it while you're taking care of that little wonderful child. When inconsistencies arise, they experience mental and emotional discomfort. Now, if I'm inconsistent about something, I feel emotionally uncomfortable. My thinking is, I'm not settled with whatever that might be. Imagine a child. They're forming their thinking, they're forming their emotions, their perceptions of everything. They need the parent to be consistent with all those things that we've spoken of. Their thinking, their beliefs, their attitudes, their behaviors. If my parent is that way, I'm taking that into myself. I'm making that a part of my identity. I'm forming that. I'm going to be like my parent. That helps that child. And so if I don't have that as a parent, I need to build it. I need to work on it. So experience mental and emotional discomfort is what occurs, which motivates them to restore harmony. And that basically is, if I'm uncomfortable about something, if I'm not settled about something, I want to be. How can I be? I have to find harmony somehow. I have to find consistency. So children are going to seek the consistency somehow. What's comfortable? What feels right? Because remember, they're dealing mostly with feelings at that young age. Their brain is still forming, and so they're going towards emotions, the emotions that feel good, the emotions that make them comfortable, the emotions that they look forward to, which is why they want to play all the time. Imagine a parenting scenario involving discipline and the enforcement of rules. A child like Alex, for example. Now, I had to think, okay, have I ever had an Alex in counseling? So no one thinks I'm talking about them. No, I never had an Alex in counseling. So this is just a fictitious name that I brought up here. A child, Alex, is told by his parents that he must complete his homework before playing the video games. Now, I thought, okay, now in the old days, it was before you go out and play. Now it's before you play video games. This rule ensures that Alex prioritizes his educational responsibilities over recreational activities. So what's more important? Well, doing your homework is more important than playing video games. To be consistent, then, the parents need to enforce or reinforce that every day. If Alex's parents sometimes allow him to play video games before completing his homework, an inconsistency arises between their stated rules and actions. Now, there's always reasons to bend a rule, to be flexible. So we're not talking about rigidity, it has to be this way every single time, absolutely. Well, no, we're going to have dinner early tonight, or we have to run to the store, or we have to do something else. Sometimes there's that flexibility, and as parents, we need to accept that, not be so rigid that we're like robots. That inconsistency, however, if we're kind of flippant about, well, yeah, you can play your video, or you ignore the fact that they're playing their video and they see you ignoring it, you're just reinforcing that's not so important after all, but it's confusing to them. Now, what is more important? So they start scratching their head. Well, I enjoy playing videos first, and it's not that, must not be that important to do the homework first. Well, I'm going to play video first, because that's more fun. Well, they're going to go towards what's more fun. It's up to us as parents to guide them in doing what's right, what beliefs we have, sticking with those beliefs. What are the truths in life? Sticking with those truths. Otherwise, they're going to drift towards anything they want to do, anything they want to believe. And that must be true. Now, we got a problem in this generation. Mental illness is at the highest it's ever been. Why is that? Well, we could blame the food, we could blame the medicines, or we could blame the environment. But you know what tends to be the bottom line of it all? This right here, the inconsistencies. If you're teaching your child that a belief or a truth is not important, then they're going to go towards whatever they want to believe. That's more important. Now it's consistent because they're believing it to be consistent. Okay, this is good for me, and that's what they do. But now it's the opposite of truth or reality. Mental illness comes out of it. Depression, anxiety, suicides, and rebellion, and whatever else. Now, you don't have to take my word for that. Study it yourself. Read about it yourself. What are the studies showing? What is the research showing about all that? And you're going to see there's a consistency there. The inconsistency can lead to cognitive dissonance for Alex. When the rule is to finish homework first, but his parents occasionally make exceptions, Alex may experience what they call as cognitive dissonance, feeling confused and uncertain about rules of importance. The cognitive dissonance theory is motivated about reducing the discomfort and seeking consistency. I'm confused, I'm uncomfortable about this belief. My perceptions are something different. They believe the lie to be a truth and the truth to be a lie. I'm choosing to believe the lie to be a truth. There's confusion there with cognitive dissonance. He'll either adhere to the rule in a strict way or rebel against it, demonstrating the potential outcomes of his response to cognitive dissonance. If Alex's parents consistently enforce the rule, he'll likely internalize the importance of completing his homework before engaging in recreational activities. If his parents are consistently reinforcing the rule, up the steps it's going from the basement to the upper room, reinforcing the top half of the brain, reinforcing the good thinking of the brain, Your matter, the brain matter, and they've identified this with the CAT scans and the MRIs, the brain matter will actually grow in the top half of the brain the longer someone resides in the good thinking region of their brain. The opposite is true. The longer someone resides in emotions, they're emotion driven, they're impulsive, they're addictive personality that resides down there in the basement. They're driven by fear, they're driven by anxiety, depression, or anger. That part of the brain, actually, the brain matter grows in that part of the brain as well. Which part do you want to be bigger, healthier? You want the top half to be that way. And so with children, we're teaching them to reside more up top here, so they're internalizing the good thinking more than they are the bad thinking down there. And we do that as parents. Yet we as parents have to be that way too. So again, we can make our changes. We are empowered to make those changes. We may not be able to change somebody else, but we can certainly change ourselves. And that's the work we do to improve ourselves. And I'm older now. I'm still changing. I'm still improving. I'm still working on myself. So it's a journey. It's a lifetime journey of building up the top half of your brain and being able to pass it along. And that's what we want to do as parents. Build up that top half for yourself so you can pass it along to your children. This consistent enforcement reduces the likelihood of cognitive dissonance as Alex's beliefs, attitudes, and behaviors remain aligned. Parents help children develop stable beliefs, attitudes, and behaviors by consistently and lovingly clarifying the rules. This ultimately fosters a sense of security, promotes healthy thinking, and what does that do? Well, that leads to healthy behaviors. Now, the Bible has a lot to say about this, and you can read a whole lot about it. I only brought up a few things here, but what does the Bible have to say? It tells us that parenting needs to be consistent, and with consistency, that fundamental principle is truth, reality, morally right. It's good. Good things come of it. You thrive from it. So the Bible teaches if we do these certain things, you're more than likely, and there's always exceptions to the rules, but you're more than likely to thrive. One of the primary benefits of consistent parenting is the establishment of trust. And trust is a cornerstone in that parent-child relationship that I mentioned a little earlier. In that relationship, it's essential that children have confidence in their parents. And in the same way, we have confidence in God, trust in God. When parents are consistent in their actions, promises, and discipline, in love again, children learn to trust the parent. Proverbs chapter 22, verse 6 supports this when it says, "Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he's old, he'll not depart from it." Now, I'm older. I'm still being pretty consistent with how my parents raised me. The clients that come in, I see some of them pretty consistent with the way they were raised. I see others that, inconsistent and different for different reasons, perhaps traumas or other issues occurred. But if we're raised a certain way, the likelihood of being consistent later in life increases. This verse, and I'm going to pause there for a minute and just say, when we're talking about cognitive dissonance that I mentioned earlier, yes, the likelihood increases. However, if there's confusion, there's a likelihood of rebellion, a likelihood of that confusion going into adult life. And so some people, for example, I'm just using this as an example, maybe they had a strict parent who was a Christian, but they were maybe overly strict, legalistic, or rigid, and the other parent perhaps wasn't, perhaps they bonded more with the other parent, yet the rules and everything were a certain way. And now as a teenager or as an adult, there's confusion. Well, who do I follow? What do I follow? Cognitive dissonance is occurring. And now even in their belief system as adults, they become confused. They accept some things over here, but they can't accept it all because of that confusion. They drift over here to the other side and they feel better over here. So now they're confused. So they're actually speaking out of both sides of their mouths when they're talking about the Bible. Do you know anybody like that? I guess you might call them hypocrites, yeah? Talking out of both sides because there's confusion there. I don't blame them for being that way, but they do need to recognize it and do something and form that solid belief that they need to form. But that's where it's coming from, that cognitive dissonance of confusion. So one person might hold up the Bible and say, oh, I believe in this wholeheartedly, blah, blah, blah. But then they say, oh, the Old Testament or the New Testament's no good, or Revelations is no good, or this is no blah, blah, blah. Now there's confusion going on there in their minds, and they're demonstrating it by their teachings or by their examples, which tells you, oh, there's cognitive dissonance going on there. Where did that come from? Hey, I bet it came from childhood. So if you've got those issues, work on them. Read more, study more, build up the confidence, the trust in whatever direction you're going to go in. This verse underscores the importance of providing children with consistent and reliable foundation, which helps build trust and guide them on a righteous path. Consistency in parenting promotes a sense of stability and security in children. We experience this in how God consistently cares for His people, as seen in Psalm 23. And Psalm 23, everybody knows Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd. I lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul. He guides me along the right paths for His name's sake. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I'll fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Consistency. I'm confident He's with me through tough times. I trust that He's with me through tough times. And the rod and staff, people think, oh, that's punishment. No, the rod and staff, they prodded the sheep. They used that to protect the sheep. And occasionally they prodded them with it. They didn't beat them with it. When we trust in God in that manner, that He's going to take care of us, we feel safer going through those tough times, those difficulties. And we don't feel like we have to force something to happen. We do our part and trust that what we can't do, God has got it covered. And that's what we do. Do the best we can, and then the rest is in His hands. Trust is God's consistent care, provides security and comfort. When I trust, He's going to provide one way or another. It may not be the way I want it, but it always seems to work out. When He's involved, the best thing seems to happen for everybody that's involved. Consistent parenting, parents offer their children a stable and secure environment, just as God offers that to us. For those that believe in God, we are forming a stable and consistent environment. Consistent parenting helps in instilling obedience and discipline in children. Ephesians 6:4 advises fathers, don't exacerbate your children. Instead, bring them up in training and instruction of the Lord. This passage underscores the importance of maintaining consistent and fair discipline in love. This helps children grasp the concept of boundaries and understanding. Their sense of perception is more reality-based, healthy, as a result of establishing those boundaries and gaining the understanding. So you don't just say, because I said so. Explain it to them why you want them to do this or that. Now, you might not have time at the very moment to do it. Well, I'll explain it to you when we get home. But right now, I said so. Try not to use that because I said so. Try explaining it a little bit. Help them to understand whatever it is that you're trying to get them to do that they don't want to do, or they're confused about because they got that cognitive dissonance going on because you have already made them confused about something in the past. By consistently applying rules and discipline and love, parents can foster an environment where children learn to respect authority and understand the importance of obedience. Parents are often seen as representatives of God's authority in the family. By reflecting God's consistency, parents reflect God's unchanging nature. James chapter 1, verse 17 states, "Every good and perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of the heavenly lights, who does not change like shifting shadows." God is consistent, is what that's telling us. He's unwavering. Now, God has changed his mind a few times in the Old Testament, and when you read the Bible, you see where he said something, then a little later he changes his mind about it. That's flexibility, isn't it? That's adapting. And that's saying, okay, I see that you're sorry. I'm going to change my mind about doing this because I see your heart. You mean it. And so he might change his mind here or there. But we always know he's consistent. He's unwavering. And if we don't say we're sorry, if we don't demonstrate change, well, he sticks with the plan, whatever that might be. When parents model this consistency, they provide a tangible example of God's character, helping children to understand and trust in God's unchanging love and faithfulness. Unchanging love. We might say unconditional love. I've seen parents who've had terrible, awful young people and who became terrible, awful adults, but the parents still unconditionally love that child, that adult child. They might not like what the child is doing. They might not agree with whatever's happening, but they're still mom and dad. They still love their son or daughter. That's God's love for us, that unchanging love, and that love that is we can trust in. Consistent parenting benefits children in the present and helps build a legacy of faith or a legacy of trust for future generations. In Deuteronomy chapter 6, verses 6 to 7 instructs us, "These commandments that I give you today are to be on your hearts." In the scripture where it's talking about saying hearts, it's hearts and mind. Impress them in your children or on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down, when you get up. Be consistent is what that's saying. By consistently teaching living out biblical truths, God's truths that are taught in the Bible have to do with the reality that he has created life, the reality that he has created all things. A equals B equals C. In other words, there's a sequence. Life comes out of life. Where there's death, new life forms. One thing leads to another. The Bible's teaching us that sequence. Do these things and there's a sequence. Be consistent and there's a sequence that occurs. So by consistently teaching and living out biblical truths, principles, parents can instill a strong faith foundation in their children, which can be passed down to subsequent generations. This continuous and consistent impartation of faith principles helps children to internalize these values deeply. Consistency of doing right helps them to internalize those values into their adult life, passing it along to their children in their legacy, which is part of your legacy as well. Consistent parenting is crucial for establishing trust, promoting stability and security, encouraging obedience and discipline, reflecting God's consistency, and building a legacy of faith. Parents who strive to be consistent in love through actions, discipline, and teachings provide their children with a solid foundation to benefit them throughout their lives. Well, I hope this was enjoyable for you today. There's always something to learn. I enjoy looking back and thinking when I was being parented, how do these things apply? Where I might have weaknesses, what occurred back there that might have promoted those weaknesses or strengths. And then I think, okay, well, when I was parenting, what did I do wrong or what did I do right? So there's always something interesting that comes out of looking at these parenting characteristics. I want to be a better person. You want to be a better parent, a better person. Maybe you're a youth and you want to be a better youth. Well, we're learning the essential qualities of effective parenting. So next time we're going to get into achieving patience and flexibility in parenting. That's another tough one. Give us a like if you got something out of this. That keeps us motivated. May your troubles be minor, blessings more, and happiness come through your doors. God bless. We'll see you next time.